We're learning the Sikha on Rosh Hashana and Chelek Chav Daled on page 222. The Shir today is being learned, Lila Nishmas, Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rabbi Menashe Koltman. Eine von den Taimen for was mis nit masker Rosh Chodesh betfilis Rosh Hashana is. One of the reasons explaining why it is that in the davening on Rosh Hashana we don't make mention of the fact that it's also Rosh Chodesh is as follows. La'arve v'satan, to confuse the satan, shalayeda shahayim hu Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. So you shouldn't know the timing that today is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, and therefore v'lo lekatrik, and he won't come to prosecute, to speak negatively about the Yidden. The Zelbe Inyan, la'arve v'chulu, the same point that we are trying to confuse the satan, werd gebracht euch, is also brought als tam with a minig, as an explanation for the custom, was misnit masker mevorech chodesh tishrei b'shabbos shalafonav. The fact that we don't mention or we don't bless the new month in the Shabbos before Rosh Hashana, v'mitutes b'chol Shabbos shalafnei Rosh Chodesh Shabbos mevorchim, as done in every Shabbos before the new month, before Rosh Chodesh Shabbos mevorchim. Is l'chayre net move on. So this minig, both of these minhagim, both regarding not blowing, not mentioning, that is Rosh Chodesh on Rosh Hashana itself, and not mentioning Rosh Chodesh and Shabbos Mevorchim is not understood. The Satan is the Chamalach, und kommt bebezen shel Maila v'chulu. The Satan is an angel, and he comes into the heavenly court. And furthermore, things that it says about the power of the Satan. As this is elaborated upon in the Sefer Aviv in the beginning, as the Satan is gekommen b'yom adin b'Rosh Hashana, the Satan came on the day of judgment on Rosh Hashana b'toich b'nei alakim, amongst other angels, lehisyatziv al Hashem, to stand in front of Hashem. Is wie kemen sagen? How is it possible to say as mekenem ma'arvev sein, that he could be confused und matte sein and fool him, and azad dover aposhet regarding something that's so simple as only wissen zu lieb dem minhagim as Rosh Hashana, that because of these customs he'll get confused and he won't know the date and the time that today is Rosh Hashana. Davar hachim meforsim, something that's as public as possible, as known as possible. Nitfas beluches v'chulu v'chulu. Just take a look at the calendar and you see the date that we are in the time of the year. How can a custom like this come and confuse the Satan about the time that we're in? In Levosh bringt sich euch det ham. In the Levosh, he also brings this reason, Kedei la'arve v'sasatan shalayeda yom shehu Rosh Hashana, that we are trying to confuse the Satan by not mentioning Rosh Chodesh and the davening, that he shouldn't know that today is Rosh Hashana. Now, as Meisif, he adds a few words. Kivin shaloi ketshuhu. Since Rosh Chodesh has not been set or has not been sanctified as being Rosh Chodesh. Now, according to these words that he adds here, it could be explained as follows. According to what it's known, as the kviyas, the chadoshim, v'chulu, is totally in das bezdin. The establishing the times of the new month and then the Yomim Tovim that follow is all dependent on the bezdin, the court here in this world. Rosh Chodesh hat sein kviyas nor durch ein Kiddush von Yidden. Rosh Chodesh gets established only through it being sanctified by the Yidden, by the bezdin here in this world. Durch dem was bezdin Yidden seine kaved im Tag als Rosh Chodesh, when the bezdin, the Yidden here, establish it as the Rosh Chodesh, wird der Tag Rosh Chodesh. That is what creates the holiness and the day to be set as Rosh Chodesh. Biz, to the point that it says in the Medrash, as keshemiskansim malachi asharas lofnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu loymar, when the heavenly angels come in front of Hashem and they say, Eimesay Rosh Hashana, what's the date? When will be Rosh Hashana? Be'eimesay Yom Kippurim, when will be Yom Kippur? HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimelem, Hashem responds to them, Liyatim shaylim, you're asking me about the date of Rosh Hashana or Yom Kippur? Ani va'atem nelech etzel bezen shalmata. I and you together will have to go and see what the court here of the Yidden in this world will establish. So based on this we could say, b'meila, as durchnitten the man Rosh Chodesh with Tfilas Rosh Hashana, by the fact that we don't mention Rosh Chodesh in the davening on Rosh Hashana, und durch heder ha'askara b'Shabbos shalafonav, and also by not mentioning it in the Shabbos before Rosh Hashana and Shabbos Mevorchim, is der Tag Take keilu nit nikva geworden als Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. So the day, it's as if it has not been established to be Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Yidden did not make mention of it. B'meile weist nit der Satan mit Sicherheit Yom Shur Rosh Hashanah. And therefore the Satan does not know with certainty that this is the day of Rosh Hashanah. Now the Rabbi here says that this is Ki'ilu, in Ha'ar 11, Avalei Mamish, because all of the Chadashim that we have today have already been established by Hillel Hanasi. However, because though we see this concept that the holiness of the day of Rosh Chodesh depends upon the Yidden, their Aveda here below, and when that Aveda is lacking, so therefore the Satan cannot know with certainty that this is the day of Rosh Hashanah. Aber der Teretz is nit maspik. This is not a sufficient answer. Weil, for a few reasons. Aleph, number one, Rosh Hashanah tut men kama v'kama in yonim, and welche es is nikke ubad goshe, as das is the talk from Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. On Rosh Hashanah, there are other things, and many things that we do, that do highlight very clearly that this is Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Is wie kann man sagen, as sleep them was like it sure Rosh Chodesh, but the Satan it wissen as this is Rosh Hashanah. So there, how can we say then that if there's just two of these details that are missing here, that it hasn't been mentioned in Shabbos Mevarchim, and we're not saying it in the nusach of the davening on Rosh Hashanah, so therefore there's something here lacking in the kedusha that has not been established. When there are other things that are done that make it clear that in fact it still is Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Beis, another question here is, and this is a main point. The time from Erve Satan, this reason to try to confuse the Satan, werd gebracht b'negeya noch zwei menhagim, is quoted and brought regarding another two customs. That are not related to this idea regarding establishing the day as Rosh Chodesh. Aleph, another minig is, mitam zen nami ein toikim be'erev Rosh Hashanah. It's for this reason that we don't blow shofar on Erev Rosh Hashanah, ki oz yisavar Satan she'avar yemadin. Because then the Satan will mistakenly think that the day of judgment has passed. Beis, another minig. It's for this reason that we only begin again to read the Torah from Bereshis on Simchas Torah. So that the Satan should not understand when is the beginning or the end of the year. So this is something that's not at all related to what we were saying here in the language of the Levush, loiketshuhu, related to the establishing of Rosh Chodesh. So the question comes back, how is it possible to say as durch nit kezen be'erev Rosh Hashanah, by not blowing shofar on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and durch nit oneben leinen bereshis Rosh Hashanah, or not leaning from bereshis on Rosh Hashanah, is men ma'arviv the Satan, that the Satan gets confused as a zomein and as avayim adim v'chulu, thinking that the day of Rosh Hashanah of judgment has passed. From other things that we do on Rosh Hashanah, it's clear that it's Rosh Hashanah and also Rosh Chodesh. So the answer to this we would understand by first introducing was der Inyan von Erve was Satan wird gebracht euch als Tam auf dem Minig zu blasen Shofar b'meshach Chodesh Elul. This is also brought as one of the reasons for why we blow shofar during the entire month of Elul. With this as well, we are confusing the Satan, that he shouldn't understand when Rosh Hashanah will be, because we're already blowing shofar from before the entire month. So over here as well, the question is, was euch in dem is nicht moving kanal. Here as well, it's not understood. Wie kommen up not in dem Satan? How can we deceive the Satan as soll nicht wissen, Rosh Hashanah, that he won't know when is Rosh Hashanah? So the answer to explain this minute regarding blowing shofar the entire Chodesh Elul, that Inyan von Erve was Satan gefindt men b'shaychus to Rosh Hashanah in Gemara. The source of the idea of confusing the Satan is brought in connection to Rosh Hashanah itself in the Gemara. By the mitzvah from Tkiyah Shofar b'Rosh Hashanah b'chlal, in connection to the way we fulfill the mitzvah of blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah in general. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Lama toikenu meriyin kishein yoshvin, v'toikenu meriyin kishein oimdin. Why do we blow shofar and Rosh Hashanah twice? Once sitting, meaning before Musaf, and we blow again during the Shemay Esrei of Musaf when we're standing in Shemay Esrei. The answer is Kedei la'arviv Satan, to confuse the Satan. What does this mean? Is Rashi mefarish deruf? So Rashi explains, Shula Yastin, he won't come to prosecute or to speak negatively about Yidden. When he sees how much expression of love Yidden are expressing in the fulfillment of mitzvahs, this itself closes up, it clogs up his ability to come and speak negatively about Yidden. That's how Rashi explains the la'arve vasatan in this context. Das heißt, so what do we see here? What does this mean? Wie bald Yidden ba'nugenen sich nicht mit kiyas utruas pamachas. Since the Yidden are not just satisfied to fulfill the mitzvah with its basic requirement of blowing shofar once. No, they blow again. That is expressing their love for the mitzvahs. Und das ist seisem divrei asat namakatrik. That is what shuts him down, that he shouldn't be able to come and prosecute Yidden. So derech zeh, similar to this pshat that Rashi says here in the Gemara, kemen euch mefarish sein der Minyan von erve vasaten benigeya det kiyas v'chodesh el. We could also explain how the Satan gets confused by the minig of blowing shofar the entire month of Elul. The tkiyas from Chodesh Elul is dachin yanon. What is the point of blowing shofar the entire month of Elul? Ki yidua, as it's known, kidilahaze Yisrael sheyas tshuva, to warn Yidden that Rosh Hashana is coming and they should do tshuva. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Yitoka shofar be'ir goimer. When the shofar is blown in the city, people hear and they begin to tremble and know that they have to do tshuva. So therefore, when shofar is blown and the Yidden are inspired to do tshuva, durch dem gufe, was Yidden blasen shofar, und werden nisayir b'tshuva, wird es sarten mu'orviv. This itself, that Yidden are inspired to do tshuva, it's the inspiration that he sees by Yidden for tshuva that is going to confuse the Satan. Unemendig, because then the Satan will say and think to himself, as Yidden haben durch sie tshuva b'chodesh Elul, schon be'elul zeiche gewen bedin. That therefore it must be that Yidden already, by fulfilling this custom and blowing shofar during the month of Elul, are already meritorious in their judgment. Und der Fahr ist kein Teyeles nicht. Hat nicht was zu mekatet sein bei Rosh Hashana. And therefore there's no point, and he doesn't gain anything by coming and speaking negatively on Yidden on Rosh Hashana. Mistatmen dvarav, everything he wants to say is shut down by looking and seeing the inspiration of tshuva that Yidden have in the month of Elul. Similar to the pshat that Rashi says regarding the love for mitzvahs that Yidden express, that is mistatmen dvarav, that the Satan can't come and speak negatively about Yidden. Based on this explanation, that neuch verstehen, was man sagt, what we say about the minig as erve vasaten durch dit kiyas von Elul tutoif shel yavim masay yir Rosh Hashana. What this accomplishes is that he doesn't now understand when is Rosh Hashana. Based on what we explained, we could interpret these words differently. What does it mean that he doesn't understand when is Rosh Hashana? The pshat von lo yavim masay yir Rosh Hashana. The meaning of these words, that he doesn't know when is Rosh Hashana, is nit as a veist nit was steht in luach. It does not mean that he won't simply know what it says in the calendar. When is the tog zman from Rosh Hashana? When's the day, the time of Rosh Hashana? Of course, the Satan, an angel, knows the actual time of Rosh Hashana. No, rather what this means is, as a veist nit, when it says the Eisgeteilkeit, the Teichen from Rosh Hashana. The Satan will not know when is the unique time, the unique day of Rosh Hashana, meaning what the day represents, the dinu mishpat from Rosh Hashana. When is going to be the judgment of Yidden of Rosh Hashana? Was demult izman elakatik, which is the time that he has to come and speak negatively. The estate befeidish in Maharil. And we can see that this is the pshat of these words from what it says explicitly in the Maharil when he explains this. He doesn't know when is the time of judgment that he should come to prosecute. And the reason is, as explained before, B'shas ayid tu tshuva kedeboy eider es kommt Rosh Hashana. When a yid is already doing tshuva before Rosh Hashana comes, is a shame fazichet, he's already assured sheyikosev v'yichosem b'sifra shel tzadikim, that he will be signed and sealed into the book of the tzadikim for a good year. Sein din is schon abgepasst geworden the Teuv in Chodesh Elul. The din has already been ruled. He's been judged in favor in the month of Elul already. Especially according to what we find in a few places, as that on every day of the year, not only on Rosh Hashana, one can merit through doing tshuva and davening properly, that he should have a ruling of Hashem, that everything should be by him perfectly good. L'dugma, as one example, Chizkiyahu HaMelech. We find by Chizkiyahu HaMelech, when he was very not well, by his davening and doing tshuva, so he accomplished that the Eibishter added 15 years to his life. Mashma from dem Sipur, and as I understood from the story, as this is given, nit nazman miyuchad v'Rosh Hashanah v'chayetze b'zeh. It wasn't in a unique time, it wasn't on Rosh Hashanah, it was on a regular day of the year. So this is the power of a Yid by tshuva and tefillah k'deboy every day and all the time, especially in the month of Elul. Und the far is the Satan me'orve von the tkiyas von Chodesh Elul. And therefore the Satan becomes confused by the blowing of shofar during the month of Elul. Tracht, he thinks, as Yidden haben durch der Eseres Tshuva the Chodesh Elul schon zeiche gewen bedin, that through their inspiration of Tshuva, the Yidden are already meritorious in their judgment. Und sein Kitter kennt schon gar nicht auftan. And he's too late. Him coming and speaking negatively will not accomplish anything anymore. Azoi, as ein Kitter b'Rosh Hashanah is like upon him not ala safek. So even if he comes to prosecute and speak negatively, it's all just doubtfully. But maybe the Eden, it's already past the time that they have been judged favorably already. And therefore it doesn't come with the full certainty and with the full might and strength. According to this explanation, it's all understood, das was ein Teiken be'erev Rosh Hashanah, why we don't blow shofar on erev Rosh Hashanah, ki oz yeh savar asatan she'ava yeh medin. And the Satan will think that the day of judgment has passed. What do these words mean? In order to confuse the Satan even further, even more, in order that he should be under the impression that Yidden, by their Aveda, by their Tshuva, by their davening, have already been meritorious in their judgment in the month of Elul. Durch der Eseres Tshuva von der Tkiyas Chodesh Elul is memevatel erev Rosh Hashanah the Tkiyas Chodesh Elul. Therefore, the minig is to nullify the blowing of shofar on the day before on Erev Rosh Hashanah. What that expresses is that Yidden have already been meritorious, Yidden have already done tshuva, so what shofar is supposed to accomplish has been accomplished. And when the Satan sees this confuses him even more. Now, as the Satan weighs, even though the Satan is aware, as das was me blastnet b'shofar b'Erev Rosh Hashanah is a minig kavua meyaz. The fact that we don't blow shofar on Erev Rosh Hashanah is not necessarily an expression of the fact that Yidden already are done with their tshuva, they have the fullest eiros, and therefore there's no need for the shofar. He understands that this is a custom from every year, and therefore it's just fulfilling that custom. On as taimoy and mukai is to leave is taket to leave them gufa kedela arav Satan. And the reason behind not blowing the shofar is actually to confuse the Satan, not because the Yidden already for sure did tshuva, or possibly to tshuva. So if so, the Satan understands this itself, that it's only a minig. Is doch das a minig, was minig Yisrael teirehu. However, this custom is the minig Yisrael, which is part of Teire, Teire's emes, and therefore if it's Teire, this is truth. And therefore, in this minig, there's a true point that's really being expressed there. If Yidden are zeiche, vetos, dischia, muchletes badin, be'emezayna. And therefore, this, that Yidden are meritorious in their judgment fully, can actually truthfully be so. It's not just a minig for the point of confusing the Satan, but there's actually a truth to this, that during the inspiration and tshuva of Chodesh Elul, Yidden can be already zeiche badin, totally meritorious. Mahotchen abgetan der Aveda von Rosh Hashanah, and va'ava yemadin. Yidden already accomplished what they have to on Rosh Hashanah, and the judgment is already behind us. And the far is an kitrig ala safik mit achalishus kanal, and therefore, when he comes to prosecute, it's doubtfully weak with a weakness, as explained before. This explains the minhagim of why we blow on Rosh Hashanah twice, expressing the love of Yidden for mitzvahs. That's what confuses the Satan. And why we blow the entire Chodesh Elul, also confusing the Satan further, and even to confuse him more by not blowing an Erev Rosh Hashanah. Now, based on this, the Rebbe comes back to the other minhagim mentioned before regarding confusing the Satan. Al derech zeh, in similar vein, not exactly the same, but similarly, but melacheri gekent verenveren benigeet zu die andere oben gebrachte in Yonim, was man halt sich ab zu tun bei Rosh Hashanah la'arve v'satan, as es soll nicht wissen, as es Rosh Hashanah. There's other points mentioned before that we don't do on Rosh Hashanah in order to confuse the Satan that he should not know that today is Rosh Hashanah. So what's really the point there? Das was Rosh Hashanah is gleichzeitig der Tag von Chodesh Tishrei. So here we're addressing the fact that we're not mentioning that it's Rosh Chodesh in the davening. So the fact that Rosh Hashanah is also Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. is not an inyan seder azman. It's not only regarding the fact that it so happens to be that Rosh Hashana and Rosh Chodesh coincide on the very same day as Aschalas Hashana is b'meila Aschalas Chodesh. The first day of the year is the first day of a new month. This is also relevant, and there's an effect here, and using the expression of the Gemara, to what the point, the theme, and the content of the day of Rosh Hashanah is. The Yisairidus, was wird mitzadem, was das is Rosh Chodesh, the fact that there's an inspiration, because of the day being Rosh Chodesh, every Rosh Chodesh is a day of inspiration, and Yom Kapara, as the Rabbi brings in the footnote here, is Maisif in the Yisairidus and Avodas Hayom for Rosh Hashanah. This adds to the inspiration of the fact that this is the day of Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, that added inspiration of Rosh Chodesh on the day of Rosh Hashanah would also add in the outcome that Yidden should be meritorious in the judgment of the day of Rosh Hashanah. Al derech zeh, similar oich das was hayiroi likris parshas bereshis b'Rosh Hashanah, that it would be right to begin reading from parshas bereshis on Rosh Hashanah. That would be the most appropriate time. Yes, was we can explain what this means is, as this is not the far was Rosh Hashanah is Aschalas Hashana and Zman. It's not only because if it's a new year, this would be the appropriate time to start from the Torah from new again. Naraich to leave them was the inyan from Gemara shal Torah, but it's also because finishing learning the whole Torah unaschalas Torah and to start again from new is meisif and the zachiyas for Yidden. It adds to the content of the day, to the merits that Yidden need in the judgment on this day. Ukumuvan as sai aggressor esairus. So it's understood that both having a greater inspiration, sai taisvis and the zachiyas for Yidden, and also having added merits to Yidden by beginning from Bereshis again. This is a great benefit in the Avodah, the Hishtadlus from Rosh Hashanah, on our Avodah and our effort on Rosh Hashanah to Zeicha Zayin Bedin, to be meritorious in the judgment of the day. So now, based on this, we can understand, and das ist der Mechovin von dem Tam, was mis nit maske Rosh Chodesh b'Rosh Hashanah, that we don't mention Rosh Chodesh in the davening of Rosh Hashanah, le'arve v'satan sh'layeda shahayim u'Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, confusing the Satan that he shouldn't know that today is Rosh Chodesh. But das meint nicht heder ayediyah b'neged dem zman von Rosh Chodesh b'Rosh Hashanah. This does not mean that we're trying to take away from him the awareness that today is Rosh Chodesh. The Satan knows that. Nor b'negeya inyanei v'avedasei. Rather, this relates to what the point and the avodah of Rosh Chodesh can contribute to the day of Rosh Hashanah. V'bad Yidden demanen et Rosh Chodesh b'Rosh Hashanah. Since Yidden are not mentioning in davening about the fact that today is Rosh Chodesh, wird es Satan nicht magisch sein, bei Rosh Hashanah, die Hisairidus, and avodah von Rosh Chodesh. So the Satan will not sense the fact that on Rosh Hashanah there's an added inspiration that you didn't have, besides the fact that it's Rosh Hashanah, also from the fact that it is Rosh Chodesh. He won't know that there's something more here, an additional power that you didn't have, that today is Rosh Chodesh. So this is like a secret power that we keep from the Satan. We don't want him to know this, that you didn't have that additional inspiration of Rosh Chodesh on this day. Al derech zeh b'neged der inyan von maschilin likreis bereishis b'simchas Torah kadei shelo yavin es reishis shana v'chulu. The fact that we don't begin to read from Bereshis on Rosh Hashanah, but rather on Simchas Torah, so you shouldn't understand that Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year. Hayei says Yidden hayden nitan b'poyel likreis Bereshis v'Rosh Hashanah. Since the fact is that we don't actually begin reading from Bereshis on Rosh Hashanah, veteran nemen, so then the Satan will then think to himself, as in the Avodah from Rosh Hashanah, felt that inyan u'pu'ula v'lech zene verbunden mit Zion v'schalas HaTorah. He will think to himself that this is lacking. On Rosh Hashanah, Yidden are lacking this Avodah. Lo yavin es Rosh Hashanah v'chulu. He will not see that there is in Rosh Hashanah this added schus of Yidden of learning Torah and so on, of finishing and beginning the Torah. And this itself will confuse the Satan and he won't come to prosecute. Why is this? Because if Yidden would be meritorious, kanal, as we mentioned before, is a ikra veda zebishleimus ubeilui, that the Aveda that Yidden are doing on Rosh Hashanah, just because of it being Rosh Hashanah itself, will be so perfect and such a high level as they darfen it onkommen to the taisvis des eires von Rosh Chodesh und Gemara shel Torah vas chalasa. that the Satan thinks to himself that it must be that Yidden don't need any additional schos. They don't need the schos of Rosh Chodesh. That's why they're not mentioning it. They don't need the schos of finishing Torah and beginning the Torah from new, because they are so confident in their Aveda of Rosh Hashana itself that it's complete and it's on the highest level. They are already, without additional inspiration and additional Zachiyais, they are already Zeiche B'din, and therefore this itself confuses the Satan and weakens the strength that he has to come and prosecute. Okay, so this is the explanation for all these various different minhagim that Yidden fulfill, or actually we do not do certain things in order to confuse the Satan. This explanation, though, is nicht in ganzen glattig. It's not totally smoothly understood. If we look at the actual language that's used to explain this idea, it doesn't really fit so well. According to this explanation, it comes out as follows. As durch nit der Mann Rosh Chodesh und durch nit maschel sein Likris Bereishis, by not mentioning in davening that it's Rosh Chodesh, and also by not beginning to read from Bereishis, wird nar aufgetan ervo vasatan. What's accomplished here is that this confuses the Satan, as explained, that he thinks that Yidden are inspired and are already on a high level without this. However, the reason, the cause for this, that he's weakened in his prosecution of Yidden, besteht beikir in dem, was meint, as der Avodah von Rosh Hashana is Shem B'Shleimus. Und man darf klar nicht ankommen lahanal. The main point there is that by not mentioning the fact that it's a Chodesh and not reading from Bereshis again from new, starting the Torah from new, so now he is under the impression that it must be that Yidden feel that they don't need that additional Zachis and they don't need that additional inspiration. Why? Because their Aveda of Rosh Hashanah is so complete and perfect. That's the main point. If that's the case, what should be highlighted here is not only the negative aspect or the aspect of what's lacking here. The lo yada from Rosh Chodesh v'chulu, the fact that he does not know that today is Rosh Chodesh. No, l'chol hapachas, oich, what should be mentioned here, at least additionally, the prat chiyuvi, the positive point here, the aveda, bedugmas avedas Rosh Hashanah in the minyan, the aveda of Rosh Hashanah in this minyan that is so powerful that the Satan sees in Rosh Hashanah that Yidden are so confident in their aveda of Rosh Hashanah, and that is really what prevents him of coming to be mekatreg. So why isn't that point mentioned here as well in this inyan? From Stima Saloshin, when you look at the language this is the language that Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch, Ein Noegen lahasker Rosh Chodesh beferish b'Rosh Hashanah, that the minig is not to mention explicitly Rosh Chodesh on the day of Rosh Hashanah, la'arve v'satan, to confuse the Satan, shula yeda shah yom Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, that he will not know that today is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, and v'lo yavel lekatreg, and he won't come to prosecute. Is mashma, it seems, as oich di sibbe fun lo yavel lekatreg, that the reason why he doesn't come to prosecute is mitzadem v's lo yeda shah yom Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. It's just this itself that he doesn't know that today is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, which is not like the point that we explained before, that really that's only the fact that we don't mention Rosh Chodesh Tishrei only causes him to then look at our Aveda of Rosh Hashanah in a different light, that he sees our Aveda of Rosh Hashanah as being so powerful and sufficient and complete, and that is really what prevents him of coming to be Mekatreg. Why is that not mentioned here, at least additionally, to the point of the lack of the fact that we don't need Rosh Chodesh and we don't need to start from Bereshis? Und es ist nicht gleich zum Minyan. Over here, what we're discussing is not compared to the other minig that we say from Ein Teiken be'erev Rosh Hashanah, that we don't blow shofar on erev Rosh Hashanah ki oz yir savar asatan shavei yom adin, because then the Satan will think that the day of judgment has passed. Over here, in this lashon, we do see clearly the idea that it was explained before. Val der lashon gufe Ein Teiken be'erev Rosh Hashanah. When we say we do not blow on erev Rosh Hashanah, is madgish as free as min yetekeh. It makes it very clear that unlike until today, the entire month that we blow, today we don't blow. Was mitzadem, the tkiyas from Chodesh Elul is of a Yom Adin. So we see in this language itself that the point there is, as explained before, that the Satan gets confused thinking that the Yidden already had shofar the entire month and they had that inspiration b'shleimus and they don't need the shofar today, and therefore he doesn't see the time with certainty when he has to come or whether he still could come and prosecute Yidden. That's in this expression here. But the lashon before regarding not mentioning Rosh Chodesh and not leaning from Bereshis on Rosh Hashana, it doesn't say here in the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe that the point is that he sees the shleimus of the Avodah of Yidden of Rosh Hashana. All it says is that we are confusing him by the fact that he does not know, he does not see the Avodah of Yidden of Rosh Chodesh. So what's the pshat in this? Why is that the emphasis? The Yeshleima, so we can answer and say as follows. As by di tzvei inyanim, when it comes to these two minhagim, these 2 points here, nit amana Rosh Chodesh b'keshem et Rosh Hashana, not mentioning Rosh Chodesh and the davening on Rosh Hashana. On maschilin likreis bereishis b'simchas Torah. The fact that we begin from bereishis again only on simchas Torah is the teichen from the arve vasaten. Here, the idea of confusing the satan is as follows: when the satan zet, as in dem Tag von Rosh Hashana fällt bei Yidden der Mannen und bemele die Eures von Rosh Chodesh, when the satan sees by the fact that we don't mention Rosh Chodesh on this day, so he sees that Yidden are lacking this Eures, this inspiration that they can get from mentioning that it's Rosh Chodesh. Und al derech zeh die Meile von Gemara shel Torah vas chalasa, and he sees also that Yidden are lacking the zechus that they could have from completing Torah and beginning again. Ruft es harais achalishus beketrugay. It's this itself that weakens his ketrug, his prosecution, meinindig as felt ba'avayde by Yidden, because he's under the impression that Yidden are lacking in their avayde. Obemele darf nicht sich misamet sein zu suchen noch chesronis by Yidden, and therefore he doesn't have to put in an extra effort to search for more things that could be lacking by Yidden, because he sees there that Yidden are lacking these 2 things that are usually on the that should be on this day, Rosh Chodesh, and also it should be the new year, a new beginning of Torah, and he doesn't see a new beginning of Torah, and he doesn't see Rosh Chodesh, and therefore this itself is, so he's under the impression that he doesn't have to search so much for additional things to point out what Yidden are lacking. As the Satan veis does gufe. Now, even though the Satan knows this itself, and tut es defar weil mis eisen im zum arvev sein, that Yidden are only lacking this because the point is just to confuse him. Is the Chabal Payol felt the Yisayris v'schos mit alle tetzais was das bringt. But the fact is that the inspiration and the schos that there is in mentioning Rosh Chodesh and in starting Torah again is lacking here. Man hat nicht die Yisayris cholish Rosh Chodesh, und man hat nicht Gemara shel Torah was cholas Torah. On Rosh Hashana, we're lacking those additional things, the additional inspiration and schos that comes from Rosh Chodesh and beginning the Torah again. So therefore, the fact is, the Satan says, you're trying to confuse me, but Yidden are missing this. And therefore, he says that he doesn't have to work so hard to point out other things that Yidden are missing on this day. That's the point over here regarding these 2 minhagim. So it's different than the other minhagim, as the Rabbi explained before. Before, the point was that the Satan gets confused by the fact that he sees that it seems like Yidden are so confident and their avodah is complete and they've done tshuva already and they are already meritorious in their judgment. So he thinks that it's too late for him, possibly, to prosecute. But over here, though, the point is that the Satan says, look, they're lacking in their avodah, so why do I have to go out of my way to be mekatrik? Now, regarding this point, though, if so, the question now comes up in the opposite. Wie kommt es, als man soll taket zunehmen das alles bei Yidden? So how is it that we take away from Yidden on such a day like Rosh Hashanah, such a holy day, the opportunity of these 2 things that can give them an added esayrus and an added schos? True, there's a point there, we're trying to confuse the Satan. But however, kanal, sof fell doch by Yidden in dem Tag the Avedis. In the end of the day, the fact is that Yidden now will be lacking on this day these Avedis. The Yisayris from Tkei Shofar Be'erev Rosh Hashanah. They'll be lacking the Yisayris of blowing Shofar on Erev Rosh Hashanah. The Yisayris from Rosh Chodesh on their Inyan from Gemara Shel Torah Vas Cholas HaTorah, and they're lacking also in mentioning the fact that it's Rosh Chodesh, and also lacking completing the Torah and beginning Torah from new. Why would we take away this chos of all these things from Yidden on such a holy day like Rosh Hashanah? Is the B bezeh, so the explanation here is as follows. Das Gufe, was man sich meneya von die Sachen, kedei la'arve vasaten. This itself, that a Yid holds himself back from doing these things in order to confuse the Satan, darf und bringt zu noch a tiefere his eires tshuva. This should and brings an even deeper inspiration for tshuva. Wie die Inyanim volt aufgetan geworden al yedei Inyanim anal. Even deeper than what a person would be inspired by actually positively going and doing them. And the reason is, the Yisayir is tshuva in an oifen from koil hayotze mipnimiyus alev. That the tshuva should be coming from a very deep place inside the heart of the person. How is that inspired? When a person has bitterness in his soul, realizing how far he is, that how completely far we are from the true essence of greatness of who the Eibishter is. As no matter what a person does in his Aveda in this world, he's still infinitely far from the true essence and greatness of the Eibishter. That's the real Yisayirus of connection and the Mirirus that a Yid has in Rosh Hashana. This bitterness that a Yid feels of how far he is from the Eibishter. The Herzach by a Yidden in God, a starken Leifen, this is something that a Yid understands. The Herz, he experiences this, or he gets it. It resonates with him in a very powerful way. Durch seine Beinenus und dem, was mir ist von dem Einea, die Inyanim Teivim and Akadei La'arva Vasoten. When he realizes this itself, that we're holding back from a Yid these positive things that could be done in Rosh Hashana, all in order to confuse the Satan. And the Herz ein Matzah, because here the Yid sees what his condition is. As the Satan had klapim azak koyach, that the Satan could be so powerful over him, bez as man muss lieb dem bei ihm zunehmen, an ihm von tkiyah shayfer, to the point that it's necessary to take away from the Yid the opportunity to blow shayfer, haskaras Rosh Chodesh, or mentioning Rosh Chodesh and davening, or kriyas parshas Bereishis Rosh Hashana, and also to read from Bereishis again to start the Torah new on Rosh Hashana. So the fact that a Yid realizes in what condition he is and what kind of power the Satan could have over him, this itself brings a Yid to a tremendous and deep Yisayirus tshuva, realizing how really far he is in his connection to the Eibishter. Und noch in Aprat is die Yisayirus tshuva noch a tieferer, wie das kommt durch blasen Schäfer v'cholo. In a certain detail, this inspiration of tshuva is actually even deeper than the inspiration of tshuva that comes from the main mitzvah of the day of blowing shofar. Die Yisayirus tshuva von tkiyah shofar kommt von adava shemichutz imeno. The blowing of shofar is an inspiration of tshuva that comes from the shofar, which is the sound of the shofar that's outside of the person that inspires him for tshuva. And similar, to read from Bereishis again, or to mention Rosh Chodesh, is something that brings a Yisayirus to the person from outside him. However, here, this inspiration of tshuva that comes from the fact that there is not something, meaning preventing from the person, that we are stopping the Yid from blowing shofar. This awakens within the person himself to realize and ask himself, what's going on with myself? Here, he sees regarding his own condition that why am I being prevented from doing this mitzvah? It must be because the Satan has such a strong koyach over me that it's necessary to confuse the Satan. And this awakens a person with a deeper Yisayirus of tshuva from within. And therefore this itself, that a person realizes and gets brokenhearted of how far he is, brings him to a much deeper connection to the Eibishter on Rosh Hashana. We can say, this is a story that Chassidim say about the Rebbe Rashab in the Mizman from Tchilas Nisiyusei. In the time period at the beginning when he was a Rebbe. A Yid is a rein of Yechidus zum Rebbe Nishma Seiden. There was a Yid that went to Yechidus by the Rebbe Rashab and had gebeten a brache in an ernsten Indian. And he asked a brache for a very serious matter. By welcher hat sich geneitigt in Greis is Eirus Rachmen. In a matter where it was necessary to have great mercy of Hashem on him. Aber the Rebbe Nishma Seiden hat him geämpft. The Rebbe Rashab answered him, as I can not helfen in them, that he can be of no help to him. Noch im Herrn Empfer, after he heard such an answer, is the Yid Arois from Rebbe's Cheder. He went out of the Rebbe's room und hat sich voneinander geweint mit bittere Tränen, and he was crying, sobbing bitterly with bitter tears. Geindig auf verweinte, and like this, he's walking and crying, hat begegnet dem Raza, the Bruder von Rebbe Nishma Seiden. He meets the Raza, the brother of the Rebbe Rashab. Und auf sein Scheile, and the Raza asks him, for was weint so stark? Why is he crying? Hat ihm erzählt, was ist geschehen, und was der Rebbe hat ihm geämpft. So he told him what happened, that he has a serious matter, and he came into the Rebbe Rashab, and he told him, I can't help you. Der Raza ist rein zu seinem Bruder, dem Rebbe. The Razal went into his brother, the Rebbe Rashab. Vidermont is this given, but Chilas Yemenis Yusei is mentioned. It was in the beginning of the time when the Rebbe Rashab was Rebbe, so the Razal would still do such a thing. And er hat ihm gesagt, then he says to the Rebbe Rashab, Hayetochen, what's this all about here? As wenn kommt rein betten dein Brache, sagst du, kannst du nicht helfen? A Yid comes and asks you for a bracha, and all you just tell him is, sorry, I can't help you. Biz as a mevakish veint bit mois shalish from grace tzar, to the point that you're causing this Yid to walk out and cry so bitterly. Hat der Rebbe nicht mal Seden angetan dem Gartel, so the Rebbe Rashab went and put on his Gartel und Ibe gegeben, and he gave over to this Yid, as the Yid soll zu ihm reinkommen noch einmal, that the Yid should come into him again. Und wenn ist rein, the Yid came in again, hat der Rebbe nicht mal Seden him gebencht, und the bracha is mekuyim geworden b'poil, and the bracha that he gave him was actually fulfilled. That's the story. So the question over here is, wie bald does the Rebbe Nishma say that he can't help him? If, as we see, the fact is that the Rebbe Rashab was able to help him, kan nire von dem Siyam Amora, as the end of the story is. Why didn't he do this in the beginning? Und noch abgesagt, as es hat ihm gebracht, and he pushed him away, and he just told him simply, I can't help you, to the point that it brought him to tears. What was the Rebbe Rashab trying to accomplish by this, if, as we see obviously, he was able to help him, he was able to bench him? Now, the explanation for this is similar to what we explained here regarding the level of brokenheartedness that a Yid comes to by not being allowed to fulfill these minhagim in connection to Rosh Hashana. Der Yid was hat gebeten dem Rebbe's bracha. This Yid, when he came in to ask for a bracha by the Rebbe Rashab, is demolt. At that moment, tzlib zayin matzav aruchni, because of his spiritual level, given nit muchsher. He was not at all deserving. Hat nit gekent bakumen azah greise bracha wie der matzav gefordert. Was not able to receive such a great blessing that his condition demanded. There was no vessel here for this. He was not deserving at all. Und der Fahr kann him nicht helfen. So therefore, at that point, he could not be helped. Aber der Empfer von Rebbe, and however, the answer that the Rebbe gave him, that I can't help you, hat bei jedem gepeult at Zerbrochenkeit. He became so broken-hearted, feeling how low he is. Und hat ausgegossen sein Herz vor den Eibischen. And therefore, he was crying bitterly to Hashem that he should help him. Das hat aufgetan, als is geworden wie ein neue Metzias. This itself, he became a new person by this. Akeli zu Brachase Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu durch dem Rebbe Nishma Seiden. And now he was a vessel for the bracha of Hashem that came down through the Rebbe Rashab. So it's the same idea here regarding Rosh Hashana, the fact that we don't blow shofar and we don't mention Rosh Chodesh and don't start from Bereshis on Rosh Hashana is something that awakens within a Yid a deep feeling of tshuva, realizing the seriousness of the matter, of how far he is from the Eibishter, and that itself brings out a much deeper level of tshuva. A tiefere inyan in them, an even deeper point that we can say about this is as follows. Nit nor is das an inyan was ruft arais, a tiefere his eires tshuva. Not only is it that by the lack of doing these great minhagim, does that bring out a deeper inspiration of tshuva, nor ba'emeke inyan felt euch nit dabei der ilui von dem bepeil. But on a deeper level, we can understand that whatever advantage there would be from actually fulfilling these minhagim of saying Shchaydish and blowing shofar and starting again from Bereshis is not lacking either. And the reason is as follows. Das was man sich meineya von die inyanim, the fact that we hold ourselves back from these things, is minig Yisrael was Teirihi. This is all by the custom of Yidden, which is part of Teirah. Which means, as vert an inyan shall kiyum poil ha-Teirah. So by not blowing shofar and so on, you are actually fulfilling, actively meaning, or in a positive sense, you're fulfilling what Teirah says. And therefore, this is done with great joy. And why is a person doing something like this, a minig, which is preventing a Yid of mentioning these great things on this day? How could there be the same simcha in this, like when a Yid does something positively and actively fulfilling what the Eibishter wants from him? So the point is as follows. When kiyum Torah mitzvahs is no mitzvah tam v'das. If a Yid fulfills Torah and mitzvahs based on the reasoning or the understanding of what the content of it's all about, or because he has some kind of interest and enjoyment in the Torah mitzvahs that he does. Dan is da an art to the chiluk. Then there's room to say that there's a difference. As mekanet haben mazach chayis in a minig welche is shlile ve'ayin shopayel. You can't have the same level of excitement and involvement in fulfilling a custom which is fulfilled just by a lack, by the fact that you are not doing something, like fulfilling a minig which is in something that's active, that you're doing something. Und das is the cheshbon from the Satan. And this is actually the calculation of the Satan, as sof felt ba'avedas b'nei Yisrael b'payil, that he sees that after everything said and done, Yidden are lacking the advantage that there would be by the fulfillment of these minhagim. Ubefrat as yeshloimar as from kol pnima vesenet. Especially we can say that the deeper voice that there is inside the Yid, that there comes from this is Eiris tshuva by not doing these things, that is a level of tshuva that's very deep inside a Yid that the Satan has no awareness or no connection to. Even regarding the thoughts of a person, is the there are different levels of machshava where the Satan can reach and what he knows and what he doesn't know. But definitely this deep level of tshuva that comes inside a person, in that bitterness that he feels in his distance from the Eibishter, when he realizes that we're taking away from him the ability to do these things, that's a very deep level of tshuva that the Yetzer Hara has no connection to. However, getting back to the point there, that when a Yid does a mitzvah only with reason, with his own personal geschmack, then there's a difference if it's being done in action or it's something that you're not doing. But in the truth of the matter, if it's all just about the will of the king, what Hashem wants, is there's no difference between one aveda or another. Because we have been sanctified by his commands, he commanded us and we fulfill. Is by him kenaf geminnet. Here it doesn't matter at all. Even when it seems that this minig is fulfilled by the fact that he's losing something positive here. But since he knows that this itself is a minig of Torah, and therefore it's a fulfillment of Hashem's will, therefore this is considered to be something where there is something positive here that he's expressing by this. Just like when you do a mitzvah, you're positively expressing a fulfillment of Hashem's will. Here as well, you're also positively fulfilling Hashem's will, which is done with joy and a good heart, the goodness that a person feels that there is in the lack of doing. There's a positive goodness that is being expressed in this. And it's this kind of aveda that a Yid does not blow shofar and so on, and he does that with the same kind of simcha, knowing that it's all the will of Hashem, brings that every Yid should be written and inscribed in a good year, a good and sweet year, lamata masar tvachim, here below in this world, begashmius uberuchnius gam yochad, both materially and spiritually together.